I know that at some point you started working as a therapist. Well, how old were you when you got into that, and what led you to that?
Well, I started my therapy practice in my later 20s. I think it was 26, 27 when I started working as an associate therapist. I went through the traditional marriage and family therapy, which never really resonated with me. But what I felt like that offered me is some starting point to find some. I feel like for most people, they want to at least have a title for someone to have to start working with them. Like I'm a human and I'm here to help.
Yeah.
It helps to have something for people to come to. But previous to that, I don't think I really knew what therapy was, other than having to go through my personal journey in terms of struggles with mental health, addiction, and that was the first time that I confronted this idea of therapy or healing. And in an interesting way, I don't think I ever drew the connection between spiritual wellness and that need for healing in terms of our mental health or even our physical health, and kind of how it's all woven together. I feel like what really brought me into more of this holistic perspective was having to come to a place that really was a type of rock bottom of my life in terms of my mental health, and some really crippling addictive struggles that even brought me to rehab, where I had to, I went inpatient of my own accord for, it was like a 2.5 month treatment protocol that really wasn't that helpful. But what was helpful about that is it helped me to bring me to myself in terms of, I think I was just going through life in a just keep going, and that stopped me so that I could be reflective.
Yeah.
And that was the first time that I started to see that the things that didn't make sense to me on a spiritual level, maybe from my upbringing, that it was an opportunity to bridge that with my mental health and searching for something that could heal my heart and heal my hope of my life, heal my hope of humanity, because I think it's understanding yourself also helps you to have that hope and faith of each of our journeys and everything that we're seeing in life, which can definitely be pretty overwhelming and chaotic in terms of it, especially in this day and age. I think it's really hard to have a heart of hope. I think that really is the battle right now. Can we keep our hearts open and connected amidst all of this suffering and terrible things that we see? And so I think with my sensitivities, I kind of took that on of the world and was searching for a way of feeling life, a way of understanding life that could hold it all together, where my heart could connect to everything that I saw and experienced in a way where it allowed for love, it allowed for acceptance, it allowed for excitement, even in terms of seeing where each life path has value and meaning. And I think I was searching for that internally, and having to go through that recovery process is really what brought me there.
Yeah. So you say the rehab was like a stop and a period of reflection, which was necessary, but that sounds like that was all it was, and maybe all it needed to be in your journey. So after rehab was when you started to fill in some of the gaps that you needed to find to help you open your heart and be here. And what were some of the things that you feel kind of got you on your way to where you wanted to be? Some of the practices or modalities or...
It definitely started with some pivotal books that I could connect to, and I kind of see everyone has they kind of find their own answers for their life, and I think we can connect to maybe 80-90% of it, and there's like a solid 10-15% that has to be our own interpretation. If we take on someone's perspective too much, we might lose our authenticity. So I started that approach of connecting to what maybe could feel like it's 90% of what would work for me, but it was definitely better than what I felt like I had from that therapy world. Not to have a knock on therapy whatsoever, but more so there was this calling for me. I think that's what brought me into wanting to be a therapist, is I kind of had a feeling of this can be a little bit better.
Yeah, yeah.
This can be improved.
Yeah.
The processes, the protocols, a more heart-based, love-based approach to that. More of that positive psychology, really seeing the beauty and divinity of all beings instead of you're a broken individual that as a product of a broken system that just needs to be fixed. Yeah.
Yeah. So how long have you've now been a therapist for others for about a decade? Or
Around that. Yeah.
around a decade. And obviously you've done it for a while. What still beautifully surprises you about being a therapist?
How I can be wrong.
That's great. That's great. Can you give an example?
Right. Which I honestly feel is so necessary. I think allowing for a good question mark of like, I don't know. I just don't know here. That allows me to still be in my humanity, because I think that's so important. I recognize probably the thing that is the most important in like a therapeutic relationship is the relationship and being totally human. And so when I'm stumped, I want to make sure that my clients know I'm stumped. Like it's just like, okay, this is really interesting. Like let's play with this. Let's work with this. And allowing for that space actually is that kind of surprise that feels really good, because I love drawing new connections. And every individual, we're kind of all an enigma in terms of what is that thing that unlocks us. Because I found that thing that unlocked me, but what unlocks each individual according to our personal journey, our personality, in terms of our wounds, and what is there to heal those wounds. And there's some universal truths that can guide that process. But there's, again, the authenticity of that individual that it's so important that I can honor that for what is actually what they want and what they need versus what makes sense to me or to any idea system.